At 9 years old, I was curious at how the world worked. I mean, which 9-year-old kid wasn't? I wanted to explore all the different objects and places I could turn into a playfield of different obstacle courses. At 9 years old, I viewed curiosity as a gateway to a land of limitless opportunities to fulfill all the desires of my tiny little heart. I was in third grade. Third grade. I remember that I wanted to know everything, but I don't think I was ever as curious as my grandparents' next-door neighbor, an Indonesian, full-grown man who wanted to learn how to say all the names of my body parts in English by reaching under my shirt. My curiosity died that day. I turned away, never looked back. To this day, whenever I pass that construction site, at the exact same spot that this incident happened, I don't take my time to get to the other side. I don't want to know why he did what he did. I don't want to know how an adult in their right mind could ever touch a child like that. Now I look back and I'm curious, was I in the wrong? Is this the part where I should have been more careful? It was 2 p.m. We were in broad daylight and I was with my brother and his friends. Is this the part where I should have worn something less revealing? I was wearing a dress and pants. And I was 9. Which part of a 9-year-old's body was so appealing that he couldn't help himself? And back then, I considered myself lucky. I thought that I was lucky because I decided to listen to my body and run away immediately. Not a lot of people do. But am I lucky? Women and girls are taught that in these instances, we are lucky nothing else happened. We are lucky we escaped. We are lucky. When I think about what had happened to me, I think about the possibility that it might have happened to my friends, my family, my teachers, the people I see at school every day. The women at our food stalls, my peers in high school, the primary students I share my Greenstone with, and the KKC students I teach every Tuesday. When I see the women and children around me, I can't help but wonder, have they been sexually assaulted too? If so, how did they heal? In Indonesian culture, there is a big taboo around conversations on the topic of sex. It is almost always concealed and pushed away in order to avoid drama, rumors, and to save face. How are we, as a society, supposed to tackle sexual violence when we are not even talking about sex? This stigma stems from our religious perspectives that also influence political decisions. They easily become laws and is even further accepted by our culture. The system of stigmatization is continuously supported and reinforced by the people of power. It is thought that with the teaching of sexual education, the rates of premarital sexual intercourse will increase, and that is not allowed because it will bring shame to your family, especially when the woman starts conceiving a child. But when we break it down, the reason that these unwanted pregnancies happen in the first place is because people don't know that they can have intercourse in a safe way. They are not receiving this kind of education at school or at home because there is a big culture of shame. This is what prevents people from teaching sex ed outside of the biology classroom, even if it can teach those tools to not only perform safe sex, but decrease rates of unwanted pregnancies and minimize that shame in the first place. There's also an even bigger shame when the conversation shifts to sexual harassment and assault. It is so incredibly difficult to even get an ounce of support if you are a victim in this highly conservative culture where any mention of any negativity will affect you and your family's image. You will either get brushed off, victim blamed, or in extreme cases, disowned. We wonder why nobody reports. But when cases do come to light, victims almost never get justice. As a young Balinese girl who has been raised in a school with foreigners, I have realized that I have to navigate the two vastly different cultures between my everyday school life and the life I live at home. On one hand, I can talk about absolutely anything with my friends and teachers at school. Birth control, contraception, intercourse. I know what a condom is. I know what STDs are. I can tell the people that I trust at school that I have been sexually assaulted and how that has affected my direct view of how I form relationships with people. But then I come home and I can't seem to form the correct words to say that I have been hurt. I haven't told anyone outside of my school community and my close family that I was once a victim. I was scared to. I still am scared to speak too much about it now. I was hidden behind a wall of shame, guilt, uncertainty, and despair, just thinking about bringing light to this subject. In December 2021, the case of Novia Widyasari, a university student from Universitas Brawijaya in Java, had become a big discussion online. She had expressed that her boyfriend at the time, Bribda Randi Bagushari, who served as a police officer, had raped her, gotten her pregnant, and forced her to take abortion pills because he didn't want to marry her and bear the responsibility of having a child just yet. Because of the constant pressure she was in, she would share her stories anonymously on Twitter and say that she was under so much pain and was suicidal. On December 2nd, 2021, she decided to take her own life by drinking poison next to her father's grave. On a more recent event, another viral case of an Indonesian man being harassed had come to light. Pradikta Wicaksono, an Indonesian musician and artist, had been sexually harassed and groped by a fan, and the video of it has spread throughout social media. However, instead of being enraged by the fact that yet another case of sexual harassment has occurred, society has chose to make jokes about it and completely disregard the fact that there is a victim in the situation. Lato-lato Mas Dikta kena main sama fansnya. Mr. Dikta's lato-lato has become a toy for his fan. Kasian Ayang, cepat pulih lato-latonya Ayang. Poor baby. Hope your lato-lato heals soon, babe. Lato-lato is a traditional game where two balls are attached to a string. This taboo is then reinforced because if something so horrible can happen to people who are popular, and even those in power aren't receiving justice, how are we, as normal, everyday people, supposed to get any form of protection? And what about the cases that don't go viral? The countless people who get catcalled, followed, raped, attacked, abused. We are not yet in a place where people can feel safe enough to share their own story. In 2020, there were 3,605 reported cases of sexual violence towards women and 4,859 towards children in Indonesia. As of January 2023, the latest data, the most frequent cases of harassment and assault happen in Java, parts of Sumatra and Aceh, and Sulawesi. Out of 100,000 women in Indonesia, 0.063% have been sexually assaulted. Based on the reported data, I think we can all take an educated guess here and say that the number is far larger than that. Mine wasn't reported. And so as a young Balinese girl, I have had enough. I don't want to live in a place where I don't feel safe enough to share my own story. I don't want to live in a place where a woman had to end her own life because she was sexually abused, or where a man was publicly shamed at the fact that he had been sexually harassed. These rates have to decrease, and not in 5 or 10 years, now. No initiative in Indonesia has tackled this issue at its root: the extreme lack of sexual education being taught in the country. And so, let me take you on the Bella Bali timeline. Bella Bali is an umbrella initiative that aims to decrease rates of sexual harassment, assault, and abuse, especially towards women and children. In February of 2022, I had entered a global competition where I had to submit a project that tackled a world issue that I cared about. And so, I created the first ever prototype of the Bella Project, a children's book called What is a Safe Touch? This book was written with a mission to teach students aged 8 to 12 years old about exactly what the title suggests: how to identify touches that are meant with love and are safe, and touches that are inappropriate and harmful. After countless meetings with counselors Ibu Jen and Ibu Joanna, I was able to finally submit a first draft of this book. In March of 2022, this is what my prototype looked like. I remember that in the beginning of the year, Ibu Jen had invited me to sit in on one of her sexual health classes outside of school. All the students there were Green School students, aged 10 to 12 years old, and it surprised me how they all knew so much and weren't afraid to express their opinions. We were learning about puberty, and none of them hesitated to say the words penis, vulva, period, or wet dream. When I was their age, I didn't even know what sex was. It was so incredibly inspiring to see students who were genuinely so open-minded at a sex ed class, and it gave me hope that someday, maybe, Balinese students will also be less afraid to talk. This group of students had really motivated me to launch my project and bring it to life. And so, with extra hard work and dedication, I published what is now 2 books: What is a Safe Touch? And Who is Your Trusted Adult? These books are updated versions of the original prototype and are much more digestible to read, especially for students who are not at all familiar with these topics. What is a Safe Touch is geared towards a younger audience, aged 7 to 9 years old, that talk about knowing your body's boundaries and how to say no when occurrences happen to you that are uncomfortable. Who is Your Trusted Adult is for older kids, aged 10 to 12 years old, that showcase a common scenario that can unfortunately happen to children: being inappropriately touched by a family member. This book teaches us how to react, how to defend ourselves, and how to tell a trusted adult about what had happened. These books come in 2 languages, English and Bahasa Indonesia, and are accompanied by exercise booklets to develop further understanding of the topics discussed within each book. With kind help from Sexual Health Victoria, an organization based in Australia, I was able to use and translate their resources to complete these exercise booklets. In addition, I would like to thank Komang Wahyu, a Green School alumni who has helped me illustrate these books from the very beginning. My vision would not have been so amazingly executed if it were not for him. Now, these books serve as a tool to help local Balinese students receive quality sexual education that they do not at all receive at their schools. My plan was to donate these books to as many local schools and local educational organizations around the island as possible. And to be honest, I didn't expect to have much support and openness from the receiving end. I first read my book to the Karuna KKC class, for which I had been volunteering at and teaching English for the past few months. I read out Apa Itu Sentuhan Aman, the Indonesian version of What is a Safe Touch, and was surprised at how attentive and interested they were. At the beginning of the class, I had asked the students a question. Does anyone know what a safe touch is? And none of these fourth graders could seem to comprehend what it meant. They said that they had heard it before, but didn't really know how to explain it. I knew then how important it actually was that these students could understand the concept. After the reading and a thorough discussion, the students were not at all shocked or traumatized. They said that they had learned a lot, and that the pictures actually really helped. They even said that their favorite part of the book were the illustrations. A week later, at the Kumpul KKC event, I had presented my project in front of all the KKC students and asked my students whether or not they remembered my book. I had asked the audience, apakah ada yang tahu apa itu sentuhan aman? Does anyone know what a safe touch is? And my Karuna students, with utmost bravery and confidence, eagerly raised their hands. Sentuhan aman adalah sentuhan yang nyaman dan yang diinginkan. A safe touch is a touch that is comfortable and wanted. At that moment, I could not have been happier. I was so incredibly proud of my students, and it genuinely brought tears to my eyes. If one tiny little book could change their whole perspective and could help them protect themselves in potential cases of sexual harassment and assault in the future, imagine what a whole curriculum could do. I thought to myself, these students, they won't have to experience what I did. They will be safe. After that first reading, I had even more confidence that this project could actually work. My books could be impactful to local students all around Bali, and even students outside of Bali. Here is a clip of students at Peduli Anak Lombok reading my book.
Itu sentuhan aman. Ngeri ya?
Ayo baca.
Halo teman-teman, namaku Erin dan umurku 8 tahun. Ini kakakku Bayu dan dia berumur 10 tahun. Kami baru saja pulang dari sekolah dan aku lelah sekali.
Wih, pintar banget baca.
Nah, Erin, sebelum kamu ngantuk, coba ceritakan dulu ke ibu tadi Erin sama Bayu belajar apa di sekolah. Katanya penting sekali, kata ibu dengan pelan.
A big, big thank you to the Lombok Service Trip crew who has helped me distribute and donate these books. Now here I thought that my project wasn't going to be welcomed and that my books would be one huge waste. But look at it now. Read and distributed to 3 local primary schools around Sibang, many educational organizations, spread to over 200 students, and impacted many. As a measure of impact, I had asked the students what they had learned and how they would implement the lessons from the book into real life. Here were some of their responses. Kita harus meminta izin sebelum menyentuh seseorang. We have to ask for permission before touching someone. Kami boleh mengatakan tidak jika kami tidak menginginkan suatu sentuhan. We are allowed to say no if we don't want a certain touch. Kami harus memberitahu orang dewasa yang kami percayai jika terjadi suatu sentuhan yang tidak aman. Dan kami harus memberitahu mereka dengan jujur, lengkap, dan terbuka. We have to tell a trusted adult if a form of unsafe touch happens to us. And we have to tell them with honesty, with an open mind, and we have to tell the story completely. Furthermore, the Bella impact widened when Ibu Putri told me that I had the chance to talk to people from Kominfo Indonesia, the Ministry of Communication, Technology, and Information in the country, about my project. I was met with incredible enthusiasm from Ibu Sasti and Pak Doni, and my books are currently in the process of being spread through Kominfo, UNICEF, and many private channels based in Jakarta, Surabaya, Yogyakarta, and potentially Papua. All right. We all get it. Bella is going nationwide. Now, this comes to show that there is incredible power in learning. Even when there is a void of silence, there is a way to navigate through that and empower students to be more open and know how to protect themselves in the future. But that doesn't take away from the fact that stories still need to be heard. This was the aim of Voices of Silence. Along with Kaleo Kolb and Eden Rice, we had created the Voices of Silence Gallery event to fundraise for individuals and communities in Bali who did not at all have a platform to share their stories. We met with people from many different backgrounds who all come with a variety of experiences. One particular story that stood out to me was the story of Ibu Dayu, a woman who I had met at a workshop held by Bali Bersama Bisa about self-defense in instances of sexual assault. When I first met her, she had shared her experience of sexual assault with the group and said that she was able to heal from it because she felt brave to speak up. When we asked her about it during our interview, she said that talking about it really helped, especially because she was also dealing with breast cancer, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and kidney stones. She had met a community of women who were also dealing with cancer, and together they could talk about their journeys. By sharing her story, other women felt empowered to speak up about their own experiences of sexual assault and abuse. Ibu Dayu realized that she wasn't alone, and that she and her community could start to heal together. When I look back now, us three, going around to meet the incredible people of Bali, who all have their own stories, are incredibly privileged. Me standing here right now, being able to share these stories with you all is a privilege in itself. These stories are what need to be heard in order to break the taboo. It all comes full circle. And of course, what Bella has done is merely a first step towards a more aware Indonesian society, and there are still a lot of aspects to tackle. There are heavy cultural taboos around conversations on the topics of sexual harassment, assault, and abuse that we have to work around, but I have hope. I encourage us all to have hope. Indonesia, I am so proud of the country that we can become. In the future, we will have a place where victims can feel safe enough to share their own story, where they will be heard, supported, and feel no shame. We owe it to all the 9-year-olds in the whole wide world to keep them safe and to keep them curious. Thank you.